Hi. How's everyone doing? See if I can put trying to get YouTube together. Sorry. There we go. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to another random live that I've been doing all month, just hitting certain topics that I know I get either a lot of questions about or comments about. So, all live, I charged myself to, and my business coach, like, force yourself to go live every day and tackle some of those common topics, those common issues that I find repetitive on, videos of my channels as I've gained new subscribers, interact with you all. I've gained a lot of new subscribers over the past several months. I've been hard at work on rebranding, so that's taken up a lot of my time. But now that I've relaunched, I am just wanting to take the time to help you all in other ways that I can while now I'm just kind of managing the business. So, hey everyone, hope everyone is doing good. Today, I'm just going to hit on some of the don'ts in candle making. We talk a lot about what you should do, how to's, and 1, 2, 3, and here are the steps. But sometimes there are some things that you should not do when it comes to candle making. Some of these may seem obvious, and then some you may be like, "Wow, I didn't know that." So I just want to hit on a few don'ts in candle making um, that will not only help make sure that you're making a quality candle, but also a safe burning candle, because that is key. So, number one, hello, YouTube, all my people on YouTube. So, number one, um, surprisingly, and again, all of these I'm about to tell y'all, you'd be surprised. These are questions that I get. So I'm answering these questions in a form of what you should not do in this live. So, number one, do not use crayons for dye as your candle dye. Is that a surprise or not? I don't know. Maybe some of you all knew that. Maybe some of you didn't. However, you'd be surprised how many questions I've got about that. Melting crayons, or even using food dye as candle dye. No, we're not going to do that. Don't do that. Crayon wax, because, and I think I've probably gotten that question because crayons is a wax, is kind of a waxy material, but it's not meant to be burned. It's not that type of wax. There's tons of wax out here, guys. There's candle wax, there's tart wax. Yes, crayons are made of wax, but they're not meant to be burned. And so the properties in the wax of a crayon can actually clog your wick and not make for a quality burn. It can also affect your scent throw. And these are things, I've never used crayon dye, but this is what I've researched in order to answer this question. But it can clog your wick and it can impact your hot throw. So do not do that. They do make candle dye. Okay, dye comes in dye blocks. They come in dye chips, and then you have the liquid dye. I actually have a video on my channel. I think it was back in December when I posted that. So check that out. And it talks about 3 different ways to dye your candle. So if you're curious on how to use dye in your candle, check out that video, but also make sure you're buying actual candle dye that's meant for your candles. Number two, the second don't is making candles in the microwave. So in other words, heating up your candle wax in the microwave. Now, I have experimented with this, and mine was a fail. And the only reason why I experimented, because several years ago I was a newbie and I did not have pouring pictures and all that stuff yet. And so I was just, you know how you just Google stuff and wonder like, I think I could probably just pop this wax in the microwave. What harm can it do? So, several things that can happen. And I've actually researched this topic too, just to make sure that my experience was at least kind of parallel to what suppliers recommend. And so, melting wax in the microwave, I shouldn't say you shouldn't do it. Like, I'm not going to put it like a stamp, like, don't do it. This is more of a do it at your own risk type. Um, I don't recommend doing it. And these are why. And then this is also what I've researched. You can't monitor the temperature like you want to. So you're not as in control of the temperature versus like a pouring pitcher where you can simply it cooks more. I shouldn't say cook, but it melts more evenly. Every no microwave is made the same, and it can create hot spots in your wax, and it can burn certain parts of your wax, and you don't even know it because certain microwaves, they're designed to reheat food, but sometimes it doesn't all the way cook evenly. How many times have you maybe cooked a TV dinner and you've had to kind of stir it and then pop it back in because it's not breaking all through that frozen TV dinner all evenly, right? Same thing with wax. So you can accidentally overheat this part of the wax in the bowl, and then while this wax over here hasn't even been all the way heated through yet. So even in trying to stir and make sure it's all even, you've already burnt this part of the wax. And when you burn wax, it can cause discoloration, it can impact the hot throw, and it just doesn't make for a quality burn. So that's why it's almost like you're scorching it. You know what I mean? Have you ever scorched something on a stove? The food tastes like it's scorched, no matter how much seasoning you try to do to make it better. So I just want to kind of throw that out there. I don't want to. I shouldn't say this is just it's a stamp. Like, don't do it. Do it at your own risk. If that's your vibe, go for it. I tried it and it was an epic fail for my candles. And so I wanted to throw this in there because I've gotten a lot of questions. Oh, do I have to buy all this, tools and equipment? How come I can't just mix my wax in a bowl and pop it in the microwave? Do you? But if you find that your wax is not cooperating, it could be because of the microwave wattage and it's just not cooking evenly or melting evenly, not cooking. I've gotten this question about should I use perfume oils in place of fragrance oils? No. Perfume oils is not meant to be near flames. There's different chemical properties and a different chemical mixture when it comes to perfumes. I don't know if anyone has ever, seen or heard about how perfumes are even made, but it's a whole different type of chemistry that goes on with perfume oils than fragrance oils. Um, I always tell candle makers, especially beginners, use what's meant to be used for candles. That's what candle suppliers are there for. And so you don't want to venture off just because you may not you may not even have suppliers near you, or what's the harm? It's a perfume oil, it's a body oil or one of those body roll-ons versus a fragrance. It's oil, right? Fragrance oil, but yes, but the properties and the chemistry is completely different. How they construct that oil in their lab for a perfume that's meant to be for bodies, and is supposed to interact with your body chemistry, is completely different from how the chemistry is with a candle. To believe it or not, candles candle making is a science. It really is. There's a whole science behind candle making, and even though you see us on YouTube, how to make soy candles for beginners, and the video is 9 minutes, that doesn't mean the manufacturing process of the fragrance oils and the wax and the in creating that wick when all of that comes together, there is a science there in order for that fuel to burn properly. So do not venture off thinking that oil is oil. Why not? It's not meant to be burned. Perfume oils have a completely different chemistry. It can be hazardous. You could start a fire, and that is not something that you want knocking at your door from a customer, you know, with that. Another don't, when it comes to burning your candles. I know depending on the size container, um, you have to wait a certain amount of hours to achieve that first melt pool, right? But when it comes to candle making, yes, that is correct. You do want to make sure you achieve that first melt pool. But after you achieve that first melt pool, blow your candle out. I know it's probably like, oh, well, okay, I've reached full melt pool. I'll just let it keep burning. Burn it out. So that way your candle can begin to form a memory. So burning it too long, the very, very first burn, can, yes, you'll get your first melt pool, but you want to give your candle time to form a memory. You also want to make sure your wick gets trimmed. So that way on that second burn and subsequent burns, the burn is clean and it's doing what it's supposed to do. Burning a candle too long the first time, your wick will just continue to grow. And that's where people contact me saying, oh my gosh, I have black soot and I'm getting mushrooming on my wick, and it's burning the side of my jar. You're burning it too long. Candles are meant to be burned in sessions. So 3 to 4 hour sessions. Um, I will even maybe stretch it to a 5 hour first burn only if your jar is really that big. But most commonly, we're probably using maybe as big as a 10 to an 11 ounce jar. So 4 hours is good. Five is really almost pushing it on the first burn. So keep in mind when you're doing that first burn, you want to make sure that the subsequent burns are what's going to perform, right? Because customers, all they're going to do is burn it, blow it out, and then tomorrow they're going to burn it again. So not only do we have to educate our customers to make sure they're trimming their wicks in between burns, but you also need to know that as a candle maker, for testing purposes, make sure those subsequent burns, when you're doing 4 to 5 burn sessions, which is how I test my candles, I test my candles at least 4 to 5 different burn sessions to make sure that these subsequent burns is giving my customers what they deserve. So that first burn needs to just, once you hit that melt pool, so you constantly need to monitor it. I always tell candle makers, don't start a first burn test when you got stuff to do. Stay home for a few hours for that first burn test. So as soon as you hit that melt pool, blow it out so it can form that memory, trim your wick, and then you can go do what you got to do, then come back the next day and start doing more subsequent burns, okay? Another tip, I've gotten questions about this. Y'all be surprised what I get questions about. And I love it though. I love helping. That's why I said I'm going to do lives this month. Don't put your candle in the refrigerator. Yes, I have gotten questions about that. So, okay. And this is one of those things where it's like the second point that I said about the microwave, this is kind of like do it at your own risk. So I don't want to say don't put it in the refrigerator. I'm not putting a golden stamp on it. Do it at your own risk. But I'm at least going to tell you why I don't recommend it. For those who are anxious for their candles to cool, be patient. Okay? Give your candles time to cool down and cure naturally and organically. So that way, putting it in a refrigerator and rushing the cooling process can actually crack or shatter your glass. Yes, I've had that. I've experienced that. I was that beginner that couldn't wait to burn her candle and researched on Google and saw some people say it was okay, and my glass cracked. And I was just like, whoa. So she's not doing that again. So that way, if my son decides to go open the refrigerator with his strong little 3-year-old self, glass won't fall on. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to think about stuff like this. Like, some people don't think that these things happen. That's why there's candle insurance, because things happen. You should hear the stories I've heard from my candle insurance lady. Crazy stuff. Another thing it can do, it can actually shrink your wax and cause wet spots. So, we kind of, as candle makers, already kind of experience wet spots as it is. And why is that? I've talked about this a lot. Wet spots are caused because the cooling process was too fast. And that's why one of my little undercuff tricks, and I'm sure a lot of candle makers do it too, they put their jars in the oven, because when you put your jars in the oven and your jars are pretty much between that warm to hot, and you touch the glass and you're like, oh, okay, it's ready. Um, when that hot wax gets poured in there at around 140, well, at least that's where I pour mine, around 140, it completely slows it down. Stay away from drafts and all that stuff. You want to slow down that cooling process as much as possible to give your wax a chance to touch the glass and form and adhere. It's a whole process. Your wax has been through a lot. And I don't want to sound like I'm talking about wax as if it's a person, but I take candle making very seriously. So I treat my wax and my candle making process like it's very intentional for me. So the wax has gone through a lot. You've carved it, or you've gotten the flakes, put it in the pot, right? Now it's melting. Now you're constantly making sure everything is melting fine. Now you're stirring and adding fragrance oil for about 3 minutes. Okay, you give it in a minute to rest, and now you're about to pour. So that whole process has taken that wax through quite a bit. So your wax needs to have time to properly adhere to the jar, and popping it in the refrigerator, trying to rush the cooling process is not going to help. Um, it's not going to help prevent wet spots any better, and it's actually going to shrink your wax. So you're not going to get an even burn as it burns down. So, and it can probably cause other problems. For me, my glass cracked. So that was a big red flag for me. So you'd be surprised. This is one of the questions I've gotten. So do it at your own risk, but I don't recommend rushing the cooling process. I always encourage slowing it down, staying away from drafts. Don't make your candles by a bunch of windows with everything open. Try to be in a ventilated area, so more of an open area if you can, maybe a garage or with the door closed, but maybe in the garage or somewhere, or in your kitchen where it's more open, but away from a bunch of drafts and stuff, because you want to avoid particles and dust, and you want to avoid your wax cooling super fast. And that's why when people contact me like, oh my gosh, why does my jar look like this? Your wax probably just cooled down too fast, and it didn't have a chance to fully adhere to the jar. And so, lastly, one of the don'ts, and this is probably one of my biggest don'ts, because this is one of the biggest misconceptions that we as candle makers have, and that is adding too much fragrance oil. A lot of us have the misconception that the more fragrance oil I add, the better, or the stronger my candle will smell. No, it actually does more harm than good. Some of the harms that can happen when you add too much fragrance oil is you get those little dewy drops on top of your surface, on the top of your candle. It literally look like little raindrops or gooey spots, or like almost like craters that look super oily. And if you touch it, literally, it's like a pool of oil, literally. And that's because, think of a rain cloud. I've given this example a lot, so if you haven't catching some of my other lives, I've kind of hit on this before. Think of a rain cloud. What happens when too much precipitation gets in the clouds? We've all been to science class, right, in middle school. We know once too much precipitation is in the cloud, what happens? We get a weather forecast from the news guy saying it's going to rain today, and it's gray clouds, like, oh, it's real cloudy today. All that precipitation is held up in them clouds, and they're just waiting to release it. So think about that from a candle's perspective. What happens is the wax can't hold it. It's too much oil for that wax. The wax, and the way the properties of the wax is made, it cannot hold too much fragrance oil. That's why suppliers give you a recommended fragrance load percentage, and you plug in the number. You can, depending on the wax, you can go from 10 to even 12%. It's fine, but I always recommend testing it at 12 to make sure that once it cures, you don't have that craters and those wet dewy drops, and it looks literally like you need to like pat the top of your candle to get some of that. It looked like grease. Like, it's really oily. It actually does not make your hot throw any stronger. So, I mean, what's done is done. That's the max that it can hold. And so, if that's the max that it can hold, adding more is not going to make a difference. And the reason why every fragrance oil is not made the same. So, when people talk about their fragrance load percentage or their hot throw isn't great, understand that no fragrance oil is made alike. You have some strong fragrance oils and some lighter fragrance notes that once it, especially when it gets added to natural wax, it, and it's been added to the wax, the fragrance oil diminishes anyway. So the scent is what I'm saying. So you have to kind of lower your expectations with the wax that you're using, and understand that it's not going to pack the punch that you're expecting, especially with natural wax. And then know that once oil gets binded to wax, it naturally loses its oomph anyway. And then understand that even if I add more, it's not going to make a difference. The max that it can hold is what it can hold. So if you're not big on natural wax and it doesn't really matter to you, I always say try a Parasoy blend. Um, if you want to stay natural, good blends are like the coconut blends, or apricot blends. That packs a little bit more punch than soy. But if you don't care about being natural, do like a Parasoy blend, or just go all the way paraffin. You know what I mean? So don't get hung up on everybody's using soy wax. Like, use what you like. Use what is going to represent your brand and your mission the way you want it to, right? And make sure it's just a quality and safe candle for your customers. So yes, understand that more fragrance oil is not the cure for all. Test with different fragrance oil percentages based on what your supplier recommends, and go from there. 10 or 12% of what candle amount or size jar? So that answer, unfortunately, I can't just give you that answer, because it really just depends. When it comes to fragrance load percentage, it's personal preference. You just have to test and see what you like. There's some candle makers that works fine with 6%. Then you got some that use 10%. It's just a matter of what you like and what's giving you the scent throw that you prefer. When it comes to the size jar, like I said, it just depends, because your wick matters, the size of your jar matters. And then, if I'm not sure if you watched my formula video on YouTube, but then you can plug in all of those numbers to figure out how much wax and fragrance oil you need to make a candle. So, it just depends. It really just depends. My husband is in here taking my pens.
I need a pen.
And y'all know how I feel about my pens. I've told them on a live before.
What's up, y'all? Y'all all right?
Excuse me. He knows how I feel about my pens.
Where's the other one that had the black in it?
I don't know, babe. So yep, those are my tips for today. Say hi to my baby.
Hello. Los Angeles in the house. Okay.
And that's Instagram, remember?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What's up, y'all?
He'll be on my live tomorrow.
If anybody wants to send a donation, I will.
Nobody. Donation for what?
To have have my appearance.
No.
You pay for the keynote speaker.
No. He is a trip. He clowns all the time. Like, literally, I told y'all before, he has had me laughing for 12 years. He is so funny. Like, literally, we just clown all the time. You got to, right? Life takes you through enough. You just got to have fun. So yes, those are my don'ts for today on what not to do really in candle making. Again, one thing I do want to close by saying, candle making is a journey. It's a personal journey. It's a personal connection. And so I always tell candle makers, do you, right? Do what makes you happy. You can watch myself on YouTube and other YouTubers. You can Google, your behind off and look at all of these suggestions and recommendations. But at the end of the day, you're going to still, you can take what you learned from a YouTuber like myself and say, okay, I'm going to take what she taught me, but then you're going to eventually find your sweet spot. That's what happened to me. I researched my butt off about everything and purchased kits and tried different things. And now, 3 years later, I found my own groove. I found my own sweet spot. And I'm just sharing the tips and experience from myself. But you're always going to, you'll find your way. You'll find your sweet spot. You'll find your undercut, little secrets and tricks that works for you. Nobody's saying Paris does it right or this candle maker does it wrong, or Paris, I heard it from this YouTuber, so I think you're wrong and she's right. We're all cut different. We're all different candle makers, although we're a big community. So it should be more about celebrating each other's experiences through the craft versus who's right and who's wrong. Because there's a million waxes out here, there's a million wicks out here, there's tons of fragrance oils out here, there's tons of ways you can, create your own candle recipes for your personal line. My product line is near and dear to me. It's a journey for me. So I have to protect that. So that way I'm giving my customers the most authentic experience that they can. So I can only teach you, of course, what I've learned, what I've experienced, and what I've researched, and take what you learned and make it work in your kitchen. So, written my question wrong, but I hear you. I think I heard you say the percentage of the oil would depend on the amount of the wax I'm using. Yes. So, there's a formula on my YouTube channel you can check out that explains it better, um, to see how much wax and fragrance oil you want to use. But the percentage, the fragrance load percentage you choose will then determine once you plug it into that formula. But it's more personal preference. It's not like with this wax you have to use 8%. Like, candle suppliers give you a range, so you can range anywhere from 6 to 10%. Like, that's probably the most common range. So just test. So okay, with this candle I'll use 9% fragrance load and see if I like it. I'll use 10% fragrance load, see if you like it. You won't know until you try. So everybody is their own personal preference, so you just have to try it and test and see what you like. Okay, thank you all for tuning in. He'll be on my live tomorrow. So tune in tomorrow. We're going to come together again and talk about another topic together. And so he's been very, very helpful. He's very, very supportive. And there's some topics that I wanted to do during this month that I thought he would be that have certain great input from another business owner's perspective, but also from a partner and spousal perspective. So I just want to give different perspectives on here during my random live session. So tune in tomorrow. He'll be on here. Stay tuned for my post. It seemed like y'all have been, keeping up well with the post on when I'm doing it because I just sporadically post it. And so, yeah, I hope this was helpful. And I will see you all tomorrow. It's almost Friday. Y'all enjoy y'all's day.